work session. It is Monday, October 24th, 2022. It is 9:13 a.m. The session is set to go until 4 p.m. today. This is a hybrid meeting. We're in Building 1, Room 280. We will be taking a break from 11:45 to 1:30. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. I'm Carolina Mejia. I'm the chair of the board. To my right is Vice Chair Tom Menser. To my left is Commissioner Gary Edwards. Also in the boardroom, we have County Manager Ramon Chavez, as well as Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell, and many of our staff from the budget team. So this is the midterm budget work session. We have quite a packed schedule, so I'll be passing it off to Robin to start off.
Yes, good morning, commissioners. We are working with numbers hot off the press. So we are just now sending something to the printer. All right, so good morning, and I'm Robin Campbell, the Assistant County Manager, and I have with me this morning members of the budget team, and we are here to start the final preliminary decisions for the midterm 2023 budget adjustment. As you know, we're in a biennial budget, and state law requires that we do a midterm adjustment. So that's what we are in. The board has received the requests from offices and departments for budget changes. We've reviewed those in detail, and today and Wednesday, and we have the whole week reserved, but hopefully by the end of the day on Wednesday, you will make the final preliminary decisions. A final preliminary, that sounds kind of strange, but that's because the board is required to submit a preliminary budget for public review before you adopt the budget. And so you have to make decisions now on what goes into the preliminary budget. The final decisions won't be made until after public hearings in early December. Today, we have a large packet of information, but we are pretty confident that we can get through all of this by end of day on Wednesday. And what we are doing for today and Wednesday, I know I have a schedule here somewhere, is this morning we'll look at the forecast update, including the year projections for this year. Take a look at the sales tax, and that is one of the numbers. We just got the amount of the October payment this morning. So the sales tax report is hot off the press. We'll look at trends in property tax. Nothing really new there, but thought you might like to see the way it's trending. And we'll look at the general fund projections through 2030, considering the current information that we have. At 10 o'clock, Annette Pitts from the Experience Olympia and Beyond will join you. And she is here because our contract for the tourism promotion area requires that you review the TPA budget every year, review and approve that budget. And so she is here this morning at 10. And then at 11, we will look at the report of our budget simulation, which is our first kind of dipping our toe in the water on community engagement. We'll break for lunch, and then this afternoon, I'll ask you to start making decisions. And we have broken all of the requests down into small chunks. So the list of things that you're going to look at over the course of today and Wednesday are internal service requests, grants, technical adjustments, revenue, capital reappropriations, capital policy, non-general fund maintenance. Under non-general fund policy, we're going to review the requests and take a detailed look at REIT 2, Foundational Public Health, and the American Recovery Plan Act, or ARPA Recovery Fund. And then finally, look at general fund policy, and we've broken again that down into small pieces. The items that have been withdrawn, all the small amounts, less than 50,000, the one-time items, and then ongoing policy that has the greatest impact on the general fund. And then finally, we have a short list of additional items that have come to our attention since your review earlier this month. They were unanticipated at the time the budget was created. So for your consideration, we'll have a short, hopefully still a somewhat short list of items, and that'll wrap this up. And again, I'm confident that we'll be able to wrap up by Wednesday afternoon. So that's the plan, and we are going to start with the year-end report. Copy of the year-end report. So we have, thank you, Nicole, it is this document.
Is this item 2?
And
This is item 2 inside the folder, electronic folder.
number 2. So,
Is this one 2 pages?
yep, it's 2-page. Looking ahead for this year, not a lot has changed. Nicole has updated the revenue projections, and really the only change from what you reviewed last time is in miscellaneous revenue. We anticipate approximately 300,000 more in interest than when we updated this forecast 2 months ago. Everything else is tracking extremely close to forecast. So property taxes are coming in strong. Sales tax, we'll talk a little more in depth about that in a moment, but we are confident that we'll hit this $25.8 million revenue projection. All the rest are coming in as projected. I'm gonna share the screen.
Is that for 2021 or
Yeah.
2022?
Is that tied to?
Oh, I'm sorry, that is a typo in the, I wonder how many times I've printed that with that typo there. Thank you for catching that. So it's projected for the end of this year. So we are on track for revenue of $114,441,724. Someday we'll start rounding to thousands.
114.7?
Yep, 114.4, which is roughly 837,000 less than we had budgeted for revenue this year. And you'll see the big change is the drop in anticipated sales tax revenue over when the budget was enacted. On the expenditure side, page 2 has a list of all the offices and departments with each office and department's projection of how much they believe they will spend through the end of this year. Each office and department submits a financial plan, so these are their projections. And as you see, the total projected reversion or underspending is $8,606,619, so $8.6 million underspent. So we anticipate, we being the whole county, anticipates underspending general fund appropriation by almost 7%, which is very high. So, given that, the original beginning fund balance for this year was 38.5 million, and the ending fund balance is projected to be 38.3 million, based solely on the adopted budget and the projected revenue and expenditures on these pages. We'll pause to see if you have any questions about where we're at. We're very close to where we've been for the last like 4 or 5 months.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
So the exact, I guess we'll never know exact, but the exact revenue we've got to work with is 114.4.
That is the projected,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay. That's including this 8 million extra, right, on return 8.6
the revenue,
on the turn back.
the fund balance includes that 8.6 million assumption of reversions.
No, the 114 does not include the reversion.
Yeah.
Oh, it does not? Okay, that's,
The revenue doesn't include the reversion of expenditures.
If I may, you'll see the reduction in the expenditures, basically the difference between the two now is the 8.6. So you have more money saved in your bank account.
but it doesn't show anywhere yet, is that what I'm hearing?
The ending fund balance will show on the 2023.
Okay.
Commissioner Mensah, questions? I have a question in regards to, I know public health, what is it that we fund from public health that's general fund, the 109,000?
So we transfer funding to public health on a direct appropriation.
I'm looking that up.
Yeah, we'll get you an answer just on, sorry, but right off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you.
Okay. And then we're going to be on some of these reversion rates, are we gonna be discussing later, like what the offices are reverting it? Is it, if it's staffing, if it's services?
Mainly, this year what we're seeing is that there are quite a bit of salary savings in salaries and benefits, but this year we're also seeing savings in indirect rates for those offices and departments that were supposed to have moved into the atrium earlier this year, because we did not start paying rent. We only pay rent when we move in, which is starting in November. So we have many months of rent savings from not having moved earlier this year.
Okay.
When you say many months, how much, 6 months we're gonna have?
I think that it is that we budgeted to move in April.
That's what the auditor told me,
Yeah,
so that's like 9 months.
yeah, roughly
Eight.
8 months of savings of rent.
So with some, I'm able to see the, salary savings and with the offices that are moving to the atrium, I can see where that, but there's the offices that aren't moving that still have those high returns. With the clerk's office, I heard it was, I think you said last time Blake possibly played into that.
Yep.
But I'm seeing like Superior Court with 9% in return. I know with the public prosecuting attorney and public defense, with the attorneys, it's a higher salary, so I understand if there's like a higher salary savings on those.
We'll just start pulling up their financial plans so that I can tell you exactly where they are underspending. So the clerk is salaries and benefits. 580,000 savings or salaries and benefits. And then also a chunk of savings from capital outlays. I don't know if they were expecting to buy equipment, but they did not. That was another 50,000. So that was that one. Superior Court. They are mainly having savings, salaries and benefits are about 271,000 in savings in Superior Court. And then they also have underspent 500,000 in services. And we're gonna have to find out exactly what that is.
Superior Court.
Yep. So we'll get back to you on what that 500,000 is. Other ones that you'd like to know specifically about, Commissioner?
How about non-departmental?
Non-departmental is mainly because we had budgeted for the COVID. And we haven't spent any of the COVID money out of non-departmental.
Okay.
What were we gonna spend it on?
It was there in case we needed it for other things, and it is coming out of the budget in '24.
And then Commissioner's Office.
Commissioner's office is mainly vacancies.
I know of possibility of 2. Were there more than?
Yeah, salary savings for the most part.
Which one?
Our office, Commissioner's Office, we have an 18.2% reversion.
So ours is about 280,000 in salary and benefit savings and 281 in underspending that would have been tied to the atrium.
In some of the salary savings is some of the program managers who have not filled. They were funded for the whole year, which is
Yeah, the climate program manager is one of them.
And on that, going back to that, COVID, if I remember right, that was sort of giving ourselves we didn't know, I think there was still a pending package in the Congress and we weren't sure. And we wanted to make sure we had the ability to continue our pandemic activities.
That's
Am I
exactly
remembering that
right.
right? And so we kind of created that kind of buffer account in a sense. But then the money came through the federal government, so we haven't needed to spend it.
That's correct.
So it just goes back to the reversion.
Yep.
And then it's not an item, okay.
No additional questions? Okay, thank you.
All right. That's through the end of this year. So we are now gonna move to this sheet here.
Is it number 3?
It's, let me, give me 1 second. It is number 4.
Number 3 is the graph. So this is the forecast through 2030, and you see that we took the numbers from 2022 off of this projection, and that's in the estimate column in 2022. On the revenue side, we also added the 1.5 million in lost revenue that we're going to use. And one of the budget change requests adds 21,000 in revenue. So the new estimated revenue for this year is just about 116 million. Just under 116 million. But the only differences from this page are the lost revenue and the proposed budget amendment for grants. Also on this page, under expenditures, you see the $123.2 million for our budget, 123,236. Again, right off this page, and the projected underspending by offices and departments. And then also in this 22 column are change requests that affect this year. For total estimated spending this year, should the board approve all the budget items, 115 million. So we are at this time forecasting an ending fund balance of $39.4 million. And we recently had a financial management committee meeting where Darren Bennett gave his projection that was 35.6. And we are off because he did not include the lost revenue, and he did not anticipate underspending to this degree. So we're pretty darn close.
If he adds those two elements, his projection will be higher than you have right now, most likely.
Just about.
Yeah.
But we're right in the same ballpark. Any questions about this year? Questions?
The difference between Darren's and yours was how much?
About $4 million.
And then you've identified that difference, so to speak.
It's mainly the, I have higher revenue due to the lost revenue from ARPA. And then I have greater savings in the expenditures.
He didn't include this.
He has a small allowance for reversion, but not as high as what these projections are coming in at.
But over the last few years, I mean, those estimates, yours and Darren's, become pretty close.
They're very, very close.
Yeah.
It's a good time to talk about sales tax. Here we go.
Do we have a new sheet for that?
Yes, yeah, let's bring it in.
It's number 105.
So as I said, sales tax, the brand new numbers came in this morning, and we have, Whitney has updated this, the graph is not updated, so we're gonna get you a new copy of this page as soon as she adds September and October to the graph. But basically, year over year growth for October was over 15%. So October sales tax collections were strong. She's doing the analysis today, what the breakdown is. So we'll know a lot more on Wednesday morning of where this was coming in so strongly. And the year over year to date is just under 6% at this point, and we have been forecasting at 5%. So up, down, but we're confident that we will hold it at least 5% by the end of this year in sales tax.
Questions, commissioners?
Okay, so on this graph, this is showing me, I want to say August. So you're telling us about bars that aren't up there.
Right, the next 2 months, September was at 5%, and then October's at 15%.
So we would be seeing that
Yep, you'll see that upward tick.
almost as high as, not quite as high as that one, March looks like, or April,
Yeah, not quite that high.
but higher than all the other ones.
Yes,
And that's a comparison to October of 2021,
correct,
which was already at, looks like 10%-ish.
yes.
So, okay.
See, and this upward trend, it's flattening out. But if I were to do so what I'm saying is this line here, it's going up. This, it's not gonna continue to go up like this, it's flattening.
Right.
So that's where we expect to stay kind of flat, it's right in
Through all of 2023.
through 2023, right? So,
Which 5% is robust, really, under normal circumstances?
if you look back over time, there are very few years where we did not have 5% sales tax growth.
How does that play out when you've got 10% inflation? How does that pencil out, if you will? Where you don't give your employees the adequate amount to cover things, or, you know, because employees, what, about 80% of our budget or something, is that?
Employees are 80% of our budget, but I'm not sure I understand your question.
Well, because, you know, maybe a normal year, inflation would have been 2%, say, but this year it's gonna be 10%, or thereabouts.
Or 3% is what it's currently coming in at.
Inflation,
It's down quite a bit.
are you talking about maybe for a month?
Talking the last numbers we saw, we were seeing 8% and now it's coming down. So regardless of what the number's at, are you asking, what is your, I'm trying to understand your
What is our
question.
ability to provide the service for the amount of money that we've got? And if, okay, I think we differ on inflation, but if inflation was 10%, we'd be able to provide 10% less service to the public because of inflation? Or we're gonna split the difference?
No. So it doesn't have, inflation doesn't have that kind of impact on the services that we
Well, I mean, some of our
provide.
things like gasoline and asphalt and
So
all
that
that,
is
that's gonna be
costing us more
20%.
money and
Yeah.
and
So we're
that's,
gonna do less with,
so
But that's
We're not-
that's no salaries though.
no, but
we're not paying less in salaries and we are paying more at the pump, but that is included in the budget change
well,
request.
inflation reflects on everything we get, whether it's tires or gasoline or typewriters.
So you see the prices in ER&R go up.
Right.
Right.
All of those areas, I mean, so in the road,
The cost of
road
construction's
repair,
going
right.
up because we buy goods.
we're only gonna be able to do, if last year we did 42 out of 50 million, say, on roads,
50 miles.
or miles. We're gonna kind of be in that same pickle again this year then.
Unless the board should choose to appropriate additional funds.
Okay. Okay,
Because when
curious.
you looked at the road fund, you saw a fairly robust road fund ending fund balance.
And also, when you review the capital facilities plan, there is some projections of additional cost increases of providing services in 2023, and that's part of your decision.
Are we gonna get some of that additional road tax for 2023 that the governor's imposing? Do we get a little more of that to do more on county roads? Or where's that money going?
I think those are specific projects, I believe. That's what you're talking about?
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah,
So I'm asking.
that's part of the legislature, additional gas tax, but it's specific to fund the specific projects. There is not a direct allocation to local governments.
So we won't get any piece of that. That's what I'm wondering.
Well-
State's gonna fix roads, but we're not gonna fix
Well,
roads.
as a result of that, the county and the region received $75 million this year for the Nisqually River.
Okay.
And out of that, there is close to $18 million. They will be funding the construction of the 3 roundabouts on the Yelm area, the 507 cutoff. That's what you see as a result of that taxation.
Okay.
Okay, so this is where we think we're going. Projecting into 2023. There are certain assumptions built into this forecast. The first is that the board will adopt the full 1% of property tax increase that you're allowed to do. So, Commissioner Edwards, I heard some, I'm not gonna say hesitation, but not a commitment to the full 1% the last time we reviewed this. What information do you need to
Well, mine
make a
is
decision about the property tax?
Mine is more about the philosophy of taxation than it is about specifics that you might be referring to. We've raised taxes in the county, whether it's sales tax or even on the bonding issue, we didn't raise taxes, but we diverted to a specific issue that could have been used elsewhere. And I'm just in my same position about taxes. It's about $400,000, I think, is that right?
That is approximately how much it's
That we
worth.
end up with. Yeah, that's all. Priorities and spending and such. I'm just not there yet.
So what do you need to get there?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if you wanna go back and revert to a 1/10 of 1% sales tax. I don't think my seatmates are gonna go along with that. So I like to balance out what the public pays versus what we drain from the public.
So what I'm saying is that I need you to make a preliminary decision on the property tax by the end of the day on Wednesday.
That's fine. I can do that.
All right, and there's nothing in more that you need by that
No,
time
I
to
don't
be
think
able
so.
to make that
As we
decision?
go over the whole thing and see where we're short, and why, and how can we fill that void, maybe we can take that money out of the rainy day fund. I don't know.
Think
takes
that
3
we have an
votes.
emergency that would qualify for that, but,
That's part of the debate, I guess, that's all.
okay. All right, just making sure there's nothing else that staff needs to get for you to be able to
We
get.
might need to build another sand shed, and we'll cancel it. I don't know, we'll see.
We actually settled with the
I think you're just
contractor.
waiting for it to say that, right?
Well,
I wouldn't want you to feel bad that maybe I missed an opportunity.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, just making sure you've got everything you need. I have not had time to put together a chart or a table on property tax, but I do want to show you, and I'm going to share my screen, figure out how. My meeting's a little different. share the screen.
You know, when we talk about property tax and our 1% that we might get, which is, you know, well, under the $500,000, I like to take into account what the total tax bill that the citizen pays, because I know I'm paying a lot more than 1%. You know, but it's going to states, it's going to schools, it's going to a lot of other things. I like to make sure that that's kind of on the table, if you will, what the total amount is to the public, because they're the ones that are paying the bill and they're the ones that are upset. And so if we never pull back, for an example, it's just we're part of the government that's just pulling all the taxes away from the public, even though we're only getting 1% when we do that. And so perception is a lot of it, and it's kind of where I'm at on a lot of
Okay.
taxation issues.
So Wednesday morning, I will have a little more information for you about what the impact of our property tax increase is on the average home.
What's number is this?
So this is, I've not even finished this yet, it's not in your electronic packet, and I haven't printed it out. But this, again, hot off the press. What you see here is the property value has taken a sharp increase from 2022 to 23. And it's gone up from, I think it was around 47 billion to 60 billion.
Right.
Just a huge jump
In a year.
in values in 1 year. Big.
Yep, it's a lot.
The current expense is on a steady growth path. And between the two, that drives the rate down. So
What's the number that you have in there? 0.7?
it is.
Oh, jeez.
The property tax rate has dropped to approximately 70 cents per thousand. $78 cents post-levy.
Wow.
Pre-levy shift, it's
What was it a couple
74
years
cents.
ago, $1.20 or
It was
something?
$1.15,
$1.15.
$1.18.
You're hovering about that.
Yeah. But it took a big dive this year it was at 98 cents. And now it's at 78 cents. So price per thousand is down, but when I finish this table, I will also have what that means to the average property owner. Because the value of homes went up. So even though the price per thousand is dropping, there's most likely going to be an increase in property tax payment.
For sure.
Because all of it's tied to the value of the home.
Yeah.
So we'll have more on that very soon.
See, we've got that other thing pending too, like we had in 2008, where we had continual increases, and then all of a sudden, we had decreases, and you could buy
The bubble.
the bubble burst, you know, and so all those things are what the public ends up seeing, and they don't understand it actually a lot of times. They just see their bill going up, and then they go to sell or something, and well, the price I'm told I can get today isn't what I could have got last year,
Right,
but yet they had to pay taxes on last year.
right.
So all those things are
All those
playing
things.
into it, and the expenditures that we make, were they good, valid expenditures that develops trust in our community? You know, trust is a big piece of what I
And
do.
even you may remember when we had the new valuation of 65 billion, the result we'll get less revenue in the general fund. It seems counterintuitive, but that was the result of the calculation. And but although there was an increase on the Veterans Fund as well as on the mental disabilities, it comes right from the top of the allocation to the general fund.
It
So-
pretty much wiped out the 1% increase.
It was about 500,000
Mhm.
impact negative to the
Yes.
general fund when you make the call.
Yep.
Okay, so to wrap up, looking at the forecast as it stands this morning. We have assumed the 1% increase in property taxes plus new construction. Sales tax growth at 5% per year. And all other revenues remaining flat into the future. And you'll see it drop a little in '24 compared to '23 to take out items that we know are one time. We've assumed lost revenue of a total of 7 million, and we'll talk about the other 3 million that's in your pocket. Then we've included as of this morning, all of the requests from offices and departments for changes in the budget. The revenue forecast also currently includes the reduction in the road, actually that's the road levy shift, not diversion, of 250,000 less in each year into the future until we wipe it out. On the expenditure side, start with the base budget as it was adopted for the biennium, and the reversion is estimated to be 3%, which is the normal reversion rate. The reversion has gone through the roof as we came into the pandemic. So we assume at some point we'll get back to normal. So conservatively, we are estimating 3% reversion next year, could be quite a bit more. This forecast includes salary increases for all employees other than the sheriff and corrections deputies at 2.5%. We can talk more about that. We have time to do that built into these 2 days.
I'd like to talk a little bit
We
more about that.
will talk more about that. We're gonna talk more about all these things. The salary increases for the sheriff and correction deputies are built in at their bargained rates, including a one-time bonus for sheriff deputies. Medical inflation is at 12% in 2023 and assumed at 5% in future years. Maintenance and policy items, as I've said, we've broken them down so we can go through them in small chunks. And the list are grants. We have the information on the extraordinary increase for the risk pool. There's the indirect rates, the operating carry forward item, couple of items, and then the other maintenance and policy items that we'll walk through. There is a spot here for the unanticipated items, or the short list as the budget team has been calling it, that we need to lay in when we get there. And then there is also a placeholder for Amendment 2 on the budget. And we are assuming that Amendment 2 is not going to have any ongoing impact. It is to, for grants that we learned about and last minute items and similar adjustments. There are a few things on that list for your consideration, but that's later. So if you don't have any questions about the forecast, we are going to invite Annette
Hi.
to the table and talk about TPA.
Good, but when are we gonna talk about that salary
That'll be this
adjustments?
part of this afternoon. This
Okay,
afternoon,
okay.
we'll start walking through the choices that you have.
Thank you.
I'm gonna brought in copies. I brought you guys some samples. There's 5 of them. Should I start with you or start with you?
Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everybody. How's it going?
Yeah, you can pull a chair up if you want to sit at the
Oh,
table.
I'm fine.
Yeah, there you go.
This is background. Funny, you're like,
Nope.
back here.
Can I move over back?
Yeah, okay.
Do you wanna bring a chair up?
Oh, okay, now that you. Get in here, Kelly. Come on in.
The peer pressure.
Okay. So are you guys just having hard copies or are you looking at a screen or anything like that for the presentation?
I think we got a.
Right.
Okay, see,
I'll
that's,
share the screen with you.
okay, well, just curious, but
Just let me know if you can introduce yourself.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So hopefully, most of you guys know who I am today. I'm Annette Pitts, I'm with Experience Olympia and Beyond. And I'm here because we want to give you a presentation on how we're adjusting our budget for 2022 mid-year. We'll talk about why we're doing that. We'll propose our 2023 fiscal budget. And then I've also just given you some examples of some of the work that we've done this year. So I'll just kind of trudge along through my presentation. And if you have questions as I go, just don't hesitate to fire away. I don't think you need to wait to the end. So the first thing I will
Do you
tell
mind
you.
introducing your guest, please?
Oh, how rude.
I'm Kelly Campbell. I'm Finance and Administration over at Experience Olympia Beyond. Thanks for having us.
I'm so sorry, Kelly.
I really wasn't planning.
She's
I
like-
was gonna. No worries.
Okay, so thanks for that. So I want to kind of back up before we get into the presentation and talk a little bit about the beginning of this year. We started out where we brought our board together and we did a 3-year strategic planning process. We did that obviously because we were coming out of COVID. I was new, I've only been here 1.5 years now. And the world had really changed a lot during that time period, and we wanted to make sure that we were not just working in a reactionary way, that we were setting a course forward that was strategic, and that was reflective of what the entire board was looking to have happen. So we did that. One of the first outcomes was we really wanted to look at our board composition and make sure that we were being as inclusive as we could be. And, you know, on the inclusivity side, most specifically, we were looking at geographic representation. And that was a function of, you know, during my first year here, I had a lot of conversations with as many stakeholders as I could, where everybody kind of gave me their 2 cents about where we were doing well and where we could improve. And one of my initial takeaways was that we really needed to have more representation at the board level, because how our organization works is our board really drives the show. They set the policy, they create the strategy, and then me and the team execute on it. So we brought on, you know, somebody new from Yelm, we brought in Lynn Roy, we brought in somebody new from Tumwater, which is Sat Paul Sohal with the La Quinta Inn. We brought in somebody new from City of Lacey, which is Rick Walk in their Economic Development Department. So those are just a few of the compositional changes. And then we looked at, you know, just inclusivity as a whole and made sure that we were doing everything that we could in that way as well. We also kind of started at the top of the funnel and said, you know, what are we here to do? And so we re-looked at our mission to try to put a finer point on what we were doing. And so this first slide you'll see in here talks about our mission, which is really to reveal the most iconic Thurston County experiences for the world to discover. I didn't include a slide in here for our vision, but we did that as well. And our vision as a visitor bureau is to be known as a top destination in the Pacific Northwest. So we think that's pretty succinct and something that we can easily achieve. The next slide you'll see is really talking about just those steps that we went through. Again, you know, as I mentioned, we wanted to be strategic and not just focus on reacting to how the world is changing and what's being thrown at us today. Obviously we do have to do that, but we want to have a plan that is longer range, but not so long range that it's dwelling in the land of make-believe. The next step is making sure that our relationships are solid. So relationships, again, talking to our community, our stakeholders, everybody that's impacted by the work that we do. And certainly those relationships extend to the visitors we're trying to bring to the area as well. One of the key takeaways is we needed to be far more consistent in our communications, whether it was with visitors or our communities that we're serving. So we're really actively working on that. And we are very much dedicated to being accountable. We feel very honored to be trusted with the public funds that we are to do our work. So we try to do everything we can to be good stewards of the dollars that we're entrusted with. We provide monthly reporting in the form of our scorecard. It's always on our website in the reports section. You can always see, it's 2 months behind because we have to only share what the data is that's available to us, but you'll be able to see not only what is our occupancy rate for hotels and motels, what's our average daily rate, what's our revenue per available room, but you'll also see that for short-term rentals, so you can kind of see the fuller scope of what our inventory is. You'll be able to see our marketing output, our sales output as well. So I encourage you to take a look at that. And obviously the end result is we want to have a seat at the table when it comes to making sure that we are adding to the quality of life and the quality of place for people who are living and working in Thurston County, people who are visiting Thurston County, and ultimately building the economy. And I guess the last thing I'll say about building the economy is in tourism, we consider there to be two kinds of money. There's good money and bad money. And bad money in tourism is when you have one pot of money within Thurston County and it just gets recirculated and respent and changes hands throughout the community and it stays the same or less because it goes elsewhere. And good money is when you bring in supplemental funds from out of the area that builds on that base. So no loss, no staying flat, we want to grow. Any questions on that before I dig into mid-year budget adjustment? Okay. So the slide that I've added in here is I think it's important for folks to know why we propose a budget adjustment mid-year. We have a few things at play that are a little wacky. We, in the not wacky department, is we have a calendar year as our fiscal year, so not surprising there. But we as an organization start proposing our mid-year budget adjustment and our upcoming year's budget in August because of the amount of time that we need to take to get through the approval process, but also because we need to have it for our lodging tax applications. Our lodging tax applications, we start filling those out in August. This year they extend through October. So you'll see there's the first kind of red flag. We're proposing a budget in August. We won't know what we're going to get in one of our major income streams until not only are we done submitting applications in October, we probably aren't going to know what we get in lodging tax awards until December. So we have to do some crystal ball gazing, first of all, in lodging tax awards. Then in this kind of similar vein, our largest income source, our TPA or Tourism Promotion Area funds, which we'll talk about today, we can't even guess as to what those are going to be. We can speculate based on what happened the year previous, or in our case, we have to kind of skip back several years because of COVID, because we have some wild card years in there, and try to guesstimate what those collections will be. So we always know that we're going to be off somewhat because we're guessing. So we formalize that adjustment process mid-year once we really kind of have our bearings about us. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's see here. The other thing I want to talk about before going into the numbers is specifically this year when it comes to our mid-year budget adjustment. There were some things that were really different that we encountered this year that have not really been at play in years past. I think previous to this year, Kelly could sit down, she could look at our occupancy rate, could look at how many rooms do we have in the inventory. We can do some basic math, and then we can multiply it times $2 a head, and we can look at our kind of seasonal changes, and it's a pretty straightforward process historically for being able to predict TPA collections. This year, however, we found that is not the case. And as we were looking back, we could do that same math and then compare it to our actual collections, and we were on average this year so far down about 19%. So you can let that sink in for a second. You know, we can do the math, see what it should be, but what we're collecting was 19% on average less than what our occupancy rate and inventory was saying. So we had to do a lot of communicating and questioning and conversing with our lodging properties, our peers in the industry, to kind of try and figure out why our collection's less than what the numbers are showing us. And what we found, so very early in the year, we had some consumer behavioral things, you know, when Omicron was with us, and we had some dip from that, but it really wasn't vast. It wasn't a huge part of the 19% difference. But early year eviction moratoriums played a role. Most significantly today, however, is that we have a significant portion of rooms, whether through municipal decisions or nonprofit decisions, where rooms in our lodging properties are being used as mitigation or homeless rooms, which there's no reason that folks could not do that, but we don't know. And so we're not able to calculate that out so that we can forecast appropriately. We also, as an effect of COVID this year, you know, we had quite a few more extended stays than what we would have known about or predicted, whether it was from National Guard visitors earlier in the year who were here doing COVID testing at sites, or today we still have considerably more traveling nurses as a result of our healthcare workforce shortages. And those 30-plus day extended stay visitors are not paying TPA collections, and we don't have any way of knowing that. So the only way I've been able to kind of parse that knowledge out is by talking to our hotel properties. We had new board members come in that were lodging property board members, and they're like, well, this is obvious, this is why. So, you know, the only thing we could think of earlier was that, you know, are people not paying? I don't know. There's no way for us to know, but it seems pretty clear now more of what those dynamics are. Yeah.
Can you explain the connection between extended stays and TPA collections?
Yeah. So you do not pay the $2 a head assessment when you are here over 30 days or more. Yeah. I think we still collect lodging tax, but not TPA. What's that? Yeah. So so you can kind of see we have some light bulbs on our head for as we look next year. It's like, okay, so we just have to now be very aware of what those trends are looking like percentage-wise, about that gap between what our occupancy and our inventory says we should be collecting and what we're actually collecting. Part of the challenge too is that by the time we receive our funds, it's been 3 months, right? So which isn't that big of a deal. Let's say you're sitting in spring and you're looking back at winter, because that's not when you're normally collecting a lot. You might not notice a huge difference, but when we got to early August and we're looking back at May, when the travel season just really starts kicking up, then we can really start seeing, oh dear, we have an issue, Houston. So that was where we were in August, and that's why we're doing a pretty significant adjustment this year. Does that make sense? Okay, so the next slide it will show you what our goals were for 2022. In a nutshell, for marketing, we were looking at 25% growth in our key performance indicators, whether it was web visits, social media reach, public relations or earned media. We wanted to bring on 90 new CTAs, which is a certified tourism ambassador. Our tourism ambassador program is basically leveraging our peers who live and work here and having them help tell our story. So if anybody doesn't know about CTA, I'm happy to follow up with some information about that. And then when it came to sales, because we really had no idea what was going to happen this year, we said, let's just aim for 10% growth over last year, and we'll see what happens in the world. And then in the next slide, you will see kind of your comparison of, on the left, is the budget that we had approved initially. So kind of winding up, we thought we would have just south of 1.5 million in income, and the same thereabouts in expenses. But we had thought, based on earlier years' indications, that our TPA would be right around 975. When we did the adjustment based on what we started to see in August, we had to way ratchet it down because our TPA collections were not at all coming in kind. So we were estimating at that time 885. I'm not confident that we're gonna hit that number. We might. It remains to be seen because we're still waiting on several months worth of collections. So in a nutshell, what this slide shows you is that as soon as we saw that collections were not coming in as we had predicted, we needed to make some significant changes to what we were planning for the rest of that 6 months of the year, and reduce expenses everywhere we could. So we made a lot of changes to what we were gonna do from August through December, obviously, so that we could come out with a balanced budget, which is the plan. So your next slide, we're gonna kind of detail out some of these line items so you can see what is comprised in here. When we look at our income for lodging tax awards, we were hoping that we would receive 80 from for general tourism promotion, 80,000 from Lacey, 38.4 from Tumwater, 100,000 from Olympia. We did not anticipate getting that award from Yelm, and then 20,000 from Lacey, and 15,000 from Olympia, and we did not anticipate Tumwater would support us in sports tourism. Next slide is private funds. What that means is these are not publicly collected dollars. It's not lodging tax, it's not TTA. These are funds that we raise ourselves. We were hoping to bring in just over $75,000 in advertising revenue, whether through our visitor guide or our website. Event income and sponsorships is a combination of our annual meeting and sports awards, which, by the way, sports awards is November 3rd. Please come to that. We have some in-kind income that we're tracking from both of those events, and then we have sponsorship from tourism in the amount of $64,000. Part of that comes to us from Thurston County, thank you, and also the Port of Olympia. And the next slide just kind of, again, talks about TPA, that, occupancy rates, inventory should have indicated one collection. It was not in lockstep with what we received. The next slide on public funds, you'll see that $97,000. That was ARPA funding, also through the county. So we did a number of projects for that. We brought in social media influencers. We did an outdoor recreation app that geared to disperse people throughout the county as well. And some administrative costs that we thought were going to be, or that we did not realize were going to be in there, and the amount of $3,000 were added in, so that decreased from 100 to 97. The next slide is marketing and communications. I listed some of the things that we did and that we're going to continue to do, and also made note of some of the changes that we are making. When you're halfway through the year, you can only cut so many things because you have contracts. So we basically, first of all, said, what do we not have a contract for? And okay, away it goes. So things that we did have a contract for is our research. So and I'm really glad that we are continuing to have access to research tools, because it makes sure that we're making marketing and sales decisions based on data rather than what we think or hope. So we're continuing that. That allows us to target and segment our audiences so that we're much more efficient in what we're doing. We put hold on development projects. So things like we were going to be doing some interpretive signage for biking routes. We were gonna do some interpretive signage for the Thurston Bountiful Byway. Those things needed to hit hold. We continue to build out our website with new content and partner listings. We made a decision last year to no longer ask people or require people to have to pay membership dues to be promoted. It seems odd to me that we would be collecting these funds and saying, well, hey, hotel, even though you're, passing on these assessments, we're not going to promote you because you're not paying $250 a year. It just seems silly. So we did make that decision. So we're continuing to build out that body of work. And actually on that note, even though we did forego that revenue and membership revenue, we've more than made it up in advertising sales. So quite a leap there actually. And we are continuing to bring social media influencers and travel writers to the area, but we're doing it on trade exclusively right now until.
What is that, social influencers?
So what it is for anybody that is probably Gen X, Millennial, or Gen Z,
Okay,
they are, and other folks too, but more, it intensifies the younger you get. They consider what a social media influencer has to say about whether a product or a destination. They, like how we used to think when we would watch the news when we were younger, and we'd go, well, this is a trusted source of information. That's how they feel about social media influencers. They're like, oh, I like this person. They say Olympia is cool. They like Yum. I think I should go and check that out.
You can take Gen X off that list.
I'm a Gen Xer, and there are a few influencers.
There's still
that-
some of us.
There's a few of us that, but it's less. The younger you get, certainly the more it skews.
That would be me, yeah, I'm like, yeah, social media.
Yeah, it's just, so we try to look at the spectrum and make sure that we're speaking to everybody in the way that they need to, so. Yeah. Hashtag what Carolina said. Okay, so I just kind of threw this next slide in here for fun. It shows some examples of some of the stuff we did bring you hard copies of, like the new community guides. We've not done that before, and that's the result of going out and talking to everybody and saying, hey, when you did the rebrand, our name isn't in it. How are you promoting my little town? And we realized, oh, yeah, we need to do that. So we created a whole series of new co-brands. So every community has a brand of their own that links to ours. And then we went back and created actual community guides for each community. They're available in print. We've handed them out to these communities. We're also making them available as a free download on our website. So there's a lot more build out for each of the communities than what we've been able to do in the past. We made significant changes to the visitor guide this year. We took that in-house. We used to have a vendor we worked with who sold all the ads, they kept all the money, and we paid them money to print it for us. So basically, we paid them for us to lose. And there was effectively one page about Olympia, a half page for Tumwater and Lacey, and nobody else really got anything other than a listing. So we took it in-house, sold the ads ourselves, found a less expensive printer, and we're able to expand what we could do for every community. Every community has multiple pages, so everybody should feel like they're being seen and heard and included.
And can I just interrupt for a minute?
Sure.
Commissioner Edwards, we did do one for Yelm, but Yelm Chamber has all of our copies, so we didn't print one
Yeah.
and bring you one today, so don't feel left out. Yes, we did it.
thank you.
Yeah, we just don't have any more of Yelm. They're all down there.
Right here, that's the other one I didn't
Oh,
see.
we have
I
that.
actually have Rainier in my hand right now.
Maybe
Okay. I assembled these in too fast of fashion, so you may not have received all of them, so my apologies. But we did produce them all, and they are all on our website as well. We were planning to do a reprint the second half of the year, but because we're cutting expenses, we're not going to do a reprint until next year, when we have funding to do so. And then a cool thing I wanted to just include in here, you can see an example of one of our research tools. One of the research tools that we have is called Datafy, and it will tell us very specifically, it's not going to be 100% accurate. We're not going to be able to say, on this day, I know exactly how many people are here, because it's based on location services from your phone. And I think we've probably all kind of talked about this a little bit. If you happen to have your phone on, and you have your location services on, and you drive into Thurston County, and you're here for a minimum of 2 hours, and your cell phone pings, I think 3 times off of a cell tower, we're now able to capture information. We don't get anybody's personal information, but what we do get is information that says, where did this person come from? So if they're coming from Portland, how long are they staying here? Where are they going when they're here? What is the percentage of people from each market that goes to this lodging property or this type of lodging property? Where are they? Are they seafood lovers? Are they here for sports tourism? It allows us to look at key market areas and really efficiently and effectively communicate to them. So we're not wasting money on a market that is not interested in us in a certain way, or we can see growth opportunity areas where maybe their visitation figures are low in certain segments, but over time they're trending upward. So we can say, well, Portland maybe, or let's say Seattle might be spending the night less in our area, which it is, but we have high volume. So we have to figure out how do we communicate with them in a way that extends their stay. We know they're interested, but we need them interested in staying longer, because the longer that people stay, the more money they leave behind. So does that all make sense? Okay, and so that just kind of shows you some of the data we can collect from that. The next slide talks about sales. We sent Jeff out to trade shows to try and book group, to book sports events. We've done familiarization tours. We've done sales missions. We've provided sponsorships and bid fees in sports tourism to be competitive. So if there's a sports event planner who comes to Jeff or goes to the rack or goes wherever and says, hey, I'm really interested in your area, but I'm also really interested in Yakima because they have the same number of fields, they have the same number of restaurants or whatever they're into, but I feel like it's sunnier there and maybe we want to go there. What are you going to do to twist my arm and get us to come your way? So that's what those sponsorships and bid fees are for. Jeff can say, well, I'll pay for your referees. We'll pay for porta potties for you. We'll cover some of your costs and sweeten the deal so that we get them here instead of Yakima. I will say that is one of the areas that we had to cut though, for sure, as we're making budget cuts in the mid-year budget adjustment. The next slide is community relations. These are those events we talked about, annual meetings, sports awards. It might also be having to go and have lunch with somebody locally. It's a nominal small amount of our costs. Next slide is personnel. We had planned we're slowly trying to get our staff back to where it used to be, but obviously we can't do that right now. So we're hitting a hold. We were supposed to hire at least one more person this year, preferably 2. That is not going to happen. But you'll see a list of the folks that we do have right now and what their roles are. On the operational side, the next slide, we really didn't do a lot of huge changes here. We did have a couple of expenses. One, we needed to get project management software when you have basically not all new staff, but 3 of the 5 people in our office are new, and we're working a hybrid schedule. So, sometimes we're in the office, sometimes we're home. We needed a way to communicate better. So project management software, making sure everybody has licenses for the software that we're using. We did have a break-in. Our office was burglarized, and they stole a bunch of really weird things, including our postal meter, my laptop the day before a few days before the annual meeting with my presentation on it. So we did file an insurance claim, and we did get some, reimbursement, but it's never like an apples to apples kind of comparison. So we had some operational costs associated with that. And then the last slide in our adjustment is for TPA administration. Kelly administers that process for us, and you'll see a listing of what those costs are that it covers. And then behind that is just a recap of kind of where we thought we were going to be and where we're hoping to wind up by the end of December. Sorry, that's a lot to digest, but it's been a wild ride. Any questions or clarification needed or feedback?
Go ahead.
Do you utilize, and maybe there used to be a visitor center by the Capitol. Do you put brochures and things in? Do you coordinate with those kind of folks?
So we have what we call kind of satellite visitor centers throughout the county. The Capitol is not one of them right now, but that's purely just because it wasn't until a couple months ago that we knew if we were gonna be physically in session or not. And so I think we're gonna have further conversations about the Capitol and if that's gonna be a distribution point as a visitor center. But each of our chambers of commerce throughout the community act as satellite visitor centers for us, and we provide our materials through all of those resources. But one of our to-dos for this year is we're trying to figure out how do we more effectively utilize the Capitol as a distribution point, not just, to give visitor guides and things like that to visitors doing Capitol tours, but people who are coming to visit, people in session. So it's kind of part of a larger conversation. Go ahead.
I think what you're referring to is our old office used to have the visitor center in it, and we were located on the Capitol campus. Is that what you're referring to?
Well, yeah, and I'm just wondering if you're utilizing that, is that still?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I think he was just looking for our
I just want to make sure
Yeah.
that it wasn't confusing.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to 2023. We are aiming to, again, grow our marketing KPIs by 25%. We're aiming for the same number of new certified tourism ambassadors. We're looking for a slight increase in our performance in sales, so moving to 15%. We see 2022 as kind of a reset year in that we know that certain things Jeff will have done far better than 10% in certain areas, maybe not. But then next year, it'll just be 15% based on what our output was this year on sales.
I have a question. Did you
Sure.
reach the number of CTAs this year?
Not yet, but I think we're going to. With Little Creek brought on, I think that took us
And we
right
took
to,
15 more.
what's that?
Yes. I'm just, yes.
Oh, okay, yeah. It was kind of, we weren't sure, but now with our latest kind of group booking, I think we're going to. by the end of the year.
I encourage anyone who hasn't taken that. I did the class and I'm the CTA. It really, Jeff does a wonderful job at that, and you learn so much about Thurston County and the different areas. So I know that he just did it in Tenino, and there was a lot of engagement with that, so it's pretty exciting.
Well, the thing I think people don't realize about CTA is that, we talk about our people who are CTAs being, folks on the ground who can make those recommendations to visitors when they come in. They also do double duty in that they make recommendation to our locals as well, which is a part of what we're going to be looking at next year is, historically, we haven't really done a whole lot of that. It's really because we're a visitor bureau, we're here to bring people in from out of the area, but our CTAs are effectively our own influencers who live and work here. Now we just have to get them on social media as well. Yeah, I'm just kidding. But they play a really important role, so I'm glad to hear you say that. So
And there's a class of it on the November 8th,
yes,
and you get the room if you're interested.
Yeah.
Just,
if you're not a CTA, become a
from
CTA.
11 to 3.
November 8th.
November
Yes.
8th. Yeah, I know. You guys are busy that day.
But think of what it will take your mind off.
That,
Wouldn't you rather think
we have
about
Board of
tourism?
Health, Board of County Commission, we have 10 things going on that night.
But don't you worry, we'll have another one. And I will call you and email and probably text.
Okay.
Okay, so next up, we'll do a comparison. I just wanted to show you 2022 versus 2023. So we are hoping to see next year increase from where we're thinking we're gonna end up this year. Now, we've learned something this year, and that is as much as I'm very excited to see TPA come back to 975, I'll be very excited if it does. And our expense plan has built into it a Plan B contingency that if we aren't looking like this 975 is gonna happen, or if our lodging tax awards don't come in at where we're predicting, we have a very clear plan for what is not going to happen. So it will not be such a reactionary plan this year. It just means we're gonna shift to a different plan that we already have in place. And we'll just kind of blaze through these. Let's see here, we asked for an increase from the Lacey Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, and they actually awarded it, which is great. So for general tourism promotion, we saw an increase up to 90,000 for that, and then in sports to 20. We had asked for an increase from Tumwater. We did not receive it. We actually got a decrease, which is pretty disappointing, but we weren't the only ones. We're actually turning in our lodging tax request to the City of Olympia today, so that remains to be seen, but we are seeking an increase from them as well. And we will ask for 5,000 from the Yelm Lodging Tax Advisory Committee this year. We didn't this year purely because we only found out about it like a couple days before the deadline, and I think we were down staff and it just wasn't gonna happen, so. Typically, lodging tax, applications happen in the fall in the year previous, and the ask came out mid-year, in the middle of the year this year. So we just didn't know, so we're trying to get more plugged in, and now that we have Lynn on our board, we should know probably more coming up for this year for Yelp. Next slide, we're talking about our private funds. We're gonna aim to continue to increase what we bring in through advertising from our visitor guide and our website. We're gonna aim to continue to grow our event income and sponsorships. I'm gonna actively seek some new sources of tourism sponsorship. So this is a little bit of a leap over, right now, we have is it 40 or 45 from the county? 40 from the county, 15 from the port. I'll be looking to reach out to tribes. I'm gonna look into some private sector businesses and see if we can't develop some sponsorship relationships that way that we haven't done before. So the name of the game is going to be diversifying our revenue stream, so that we're protecting ourselves a little bit more.
So the $45,000 from the county, is that in the private funds line item? Where is that
Yeah.
located?
It's in
It's in
sponsorship.
Yeah.
40, I thought it was 40. Is it 40 or 45?
40.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, that's in the
So it probably should
sponsorship
be
tourism.
40.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're on a biennial program, so in another year, I will be having that conversation and seeing if that's an option and see what's happening in the world. But so yeah, looking for diversified and increased funding through our private funds.
And you said one thing about tribes and private business. Are you looking at them the same, or do you look at them as another government entity? And I just wonder because they could utilize some advertising for their activities as well.
I mean, they are, so obviously tribes are their own, government entity. But I will probably be approaching them in the same way as
Business perspective.
as a business looking for exposure, simply because there aren't requisite mechanisms in place where they're mandated to collect it and share revenue.
Sure.
So I think my only recourse really is to say, hey, we can deliver some value here, and that's worth something.
And I do believe that Quality put in a hotel as well, I think.
There's a lot of stuff happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
And
exciting.
Chehalis already has one. So.
What's that?
Chehalis already has theirs.
Absolutely. So, and we have really good relationships with our tribe. So we've really focused on that this year and trying to spend some time understanding what is a motivator for these groups and where are there gaps that we might be able to fill. So that's kind of how I intend to approach it this year coming up. We'll see what we can do. And I'm probably not gonna wait till next year, to be completely honest. I'm probably gonna try and talk to them this year, but we'll see how it goes. The next slide talks about TPA. The amount we put in here is what we would estimate based on looking at pre-COVID figure growth, not taking into account that percentage gap of what occupancy and inventory should be. So, we'll just see what happens in the world, but we are prepared to make adjustments if this number does not come to fruition. On the next slide, we'll talk about our marketing and communications. Very similar to what we're doing this year. I'm not going to plan a lot of new activities with as much question and uncertainty as we have with our revenue. The only difference is, if I am able to bring in our tribal partners, then I'd like to see a lot more specific project and marketing build out representing that group based on how they support us. And you can skip past that. Next slide is a copy of the one in previous, just showing kind of data about, it looks like maybe, you did skip past it. Thank you, sorry. Community relations, just incremental growth in our events. I don't see this being an area of huge growth in terms of we're not gonna all of a sudden start producing a bunch of staff if we're really stretched on capacity and financial resources. One thing that is different though, we are starting to really try to dig our heels into our community and try to get a better understanding of what our communities really want in terms of our stakeholders and our residents. Right now, you will see, if you haven't already, as I spammed your inboxes last Friday with surveys, we are going to be unleashing a series of surveys this year and expanding that next year, where we're trying to really understand, where are we doing well? Where can we improve? What are we missing? What do people like? What do they not like? What are their perceptions? What is the sentiment that they have about us? Whether you're a visitor, whether you're somebody who just lives within Thurston County and is impacted by our work, which would be everybody, or if you're a key stakeholder like yourselves, we really want to get a deeper understanding about what that picture looks like so that we can interpret that into our work better. Because there's nothing like thinking the sky is blue when the rest of the world says it's turquoise. Next slide is sales. We have a full sales budget in place. These are some of the events that we're planning to send Jeff to. Again, just like marketing, sales does have some padding built into it that if our collections do not come in to the degree that we would like them to, that we budgeted for, if our private sales and sponsorships don't go how we like, marketing and sales are going to be areas where we have cuts that happen. Not in staffing, but in operation. The next slide talks about personnel.
Under sales, are those, could you go over those acronyms a little bit?
Yeah, so these are sales events or trade shows where we'll send Jeff. So I don't remember our RTO. Do you remember RTO?
It's part of Connect.
I know it's part of Connect. It's like regional tourism operators. That's what it is.
Yes.
Sorry, I got very excited about that. IPW is International Powwow. They don't call it International Powwow anymore because it's not particularly sensitive in its naming convention, so they call it IPW. And that's a big international, large-scale domestic event. WSAE, Washington State Athletic Executives. Yes, okay. Teams is a sports event, trying to generate sports visitation to the area. NTA is the National Travel Association. NTA Trex is motor coach and trying to bring group tours back, which weirdly enough, group tours on coach, we're not really seeing a lot of it yet, but in industry-wide, there's a movement for that to come back. So we'll see if we can leverage that here in the next year or two. So, got all my acronyms. Good question. Didn't want to. Okay.
And do you have a mechanism in place that helps you find out what your benefit was for the expenditure going to those?
Oh, absolutely. It's room bookings.
Okay.
So one of the things that we invested in this year was a new CRM, customer relationship management system. So everything that our team does, we log into that system. When Jeff goes to one of these events, he logs all of his leads into the system. When they contact him and they say, all right, we're ready to, we're thinking about coming your way, They give him all of the details, like how many people it could be, what their goals are. He puts that into our system as a lead, and he distributes that to the lodging properties that would be appropriate for that event, and the venues that would be appropriate to that event. When they book it, they let him know. He enters that information into the system. We then plug it into our economic impact calculator, which tells us exactly what the dollar value is from that visitation and from those specific activities. So again, we try to be as measured and accountability focused as we can be, so that we're not just going places and shilling our jacket full of watches and hoping for the best. So and we've gotten very good about actually using those tools. It was an adjustment at first. Everybody is having to log all their stuff, but it's really important. So, good question. Anything else on that? Okay. The next slide is on personnel. No major changes, except if things go our way. We do have some funds built into this that about halfway through the year, we could add in a support position. Everybody is working a lot of hours, and we really need supplemental staff to be able to deliver what we're trying to deliver. We really need numerous staff, to be completely honest, to do what we should be doing, but we just can't right now. But these figures would reflect a person brought in mid-year, probably May or June, as the season picks up. So, and by that time, we should hopefully have some sense of what's kind of coming our way financially. Operations, no major changes. Hopefully things just kind of chug along and remain the same, and we don't need to do any major investments in our operations. Same with TPA. It's always subject to slight fluctuations, but I don't see those administrative costs being wildly different. And then that last slide, again, is just a reminder, recap slide showing you the comparison of what our proposed adjusted 2022 is, and showing it side by side with 2023. And that is all I have.
Thank you. Any questions?
I don't think so, mine are all answered, thanks.
I don't have any questions as well. Thank you so much, Annette, for coming by and stopping and giving us some.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Did you want
One bit of business for today is we need to extend our contract for the Olympia and Beyond to manage our the county's TPA, Tourism Promotion Area funding. So I have that contract amendment here for you, Commissioner Mejia, as the chair of the board to sign. That's ready to sign. And then the board will approve the budget along with the rest of the budget in December.
Fantastic.
All right?
Do you want me to sign while I'm here?
We'll get both your signatures.
Okay.
So, okay, that's it for this segment, and it's a good time for a short break.
Okay, so we'll be taking a short break until 11. 1 a.m. We finished off with the tourism promotion area budget, and now we're picking up with community engagement. Budget simulation report, Robin.
And I'm gonna turn it over to Jennifer.
Okay, good morning, Commissioners, Jennifer Smith, Budget Office. So we did our very first budget simulation. It closed on Friday morning. What you haven't, or it closed, I actually closed it this morning. But the data is as of Friday morning because I wanted to get it ready for you today. So there's not actually much different from what's in here, so. We had 160 total submissions over 3 weeks. We had it picked up by the Olympian Thurston Talk. It was posted on multiple Facebook, so we did get some community engagement from that. Nicole, can you? Yeah, please.
Did you say 150?
160 total.
160, okay.
Over 3 weeks. This one was much more difficult. People had to think a little bit more than the one that's the ARPA survey, because the ARPA survey is much more fun. So I get to spend all of this money, yay. This one, you actually have to think about what you would want to do, what your trade-offs would be. And I did have one person tell me that this was hard, and I had to think. I said, yes, that's what we have to do. So I'm glad somebody actually said that, because you hear a lot from people like, if I were in charge, I would do this. And then when they actually have to see what it is that they're trading off, it's not as easy as they think it would be to be the boss of the world. So I actually like that I got that feedback from somebody. So the first little chart is directly from the results page. I think this is cool. We didn't actually have any decreases. We didn't allow anybody to decrease any budgets. We told them to either increase or make no change to it. We could set it up that somebody can say, I don't want to fund X, but we didn't do that with the simulation. We just wanted to show the increases from the change requests. So if you scroll down to the second page.
So could you go back to that other page? How do you read this graph?
So that's why I think this is cool, and I wanted to show it. So it
Bell
shows,
curve.
it shows the bars are the average submission increase or decrease, and the orange is the submission, and the greenish teal colored blue, depending on what screen you're looking at, is the clicked. And the difference between submission and clicked is submission is people actually submitted what they did. The clicked is they clicked it but didn't submit or change their mind. So as they read through it, they can say, I wanted to change this, no, never mind, I want to take it back. So that's what the difference between the bars. And then we have the median submission, which is the lines.
And is the difference in amount mainly because that was the offerings, not so much what the?
Right, it's the offerings. So internal services was where the risk adjustment was, and the COLAs were all in internal services. So that's why it looks so high compared to the other areas. So the next couple of pages, I took each section that had a change request and just laid it out. So here are the change requests that were submitted for community planning that were general fund. Here's the number of votes each one got, and then I included the comments for everybody down here. I did not edit any comments. I just pulled them out as they are. So here's your airport support comment.
So, on community planning, a one more vote for the airport.
Yeah, and they can comment
The
on.
same guy.
Yeah, it could be the same.
It could be the same
It
person.
could be, but-
And so they could comment on the change requests that were in there, and then they could sit,
Come in then.
come in and say whatever they wanted to say. So we didn't stop them from giving us our ideas, because sometimes they have ideas that we don't have, and we might want to incorporate them in the future. Or in this case, it's a hot topic right now and somebody wanted to be heard about that. If you scroll down, we see the CPED with the comments. And we did have some people that didn't want to fund anything. So one of the things that I did not have the opportunity to do was look at the projects as a whole, if there was something that was or look at the request and see if there was something that was much higher. I'll go back and do that in the next week or so and see if there was something that was head and shoulders above everything else. But within the areas, you can see what people preferred. We had on Public Works, one of the things that we had was, one of the comments that we had was the dollar amount seems kind of crazy for only 2 positions. So when we had the article in the Olympian, Martine reached out to us and asked about the law enforcement because he said that this seems high for 2 FTEs. So what is included in the law enforcement? And that includes the new vehicles, that includes the equipment for them to set up. And so he mentioned that specifically for law enforcement. He did not mention that for the Public Works employees as well. So there's startup costs that are included in this. And that's one of the things that we'll take back when we put this together in the future. We'll include some more of this information. So we were putting this together pretty quickly because we wanted to see what people would do and what people would say. So next is the treasurer's office.
That's funny.
Which one?
The treasurers, like one person says, if cost of doing business is increasing, it should not be a question to provide the funding. The other person says, sounds like a waste of money.
and that's not the only place where we had the 2 opposing comments like that. So.
I do think though that the one comment about, is there a way to think about sending less mail and doing some digital type of communication is.
And when I worked for L&I, we actually we did an RCW change. We did submit a request legislation to change the law so that we could send out digital mail because that's what people are moving towards. And the law was set up that we had to send out physical USPS mail, and we wanted to change the law to send out emails if people opted in. So that's something that the county could look at in the future because that's what we do. Emergency management, no comments on emergency management. But people really liked it, so.
Most people want to fund it, tends to be popular.
Internal services, this was really interesting. This was the COLAs, and Commissioner Edwards, this will give you some fodder. A couple of the people said, why are law enforcement getting so much more than regular or non-law enforcement staff? Why are this group only getting 2.5%? That doesn't seem fair. So there were a couple comments on that. We also had a comment about why are you even asking us to think about these requests when you've already made the decision to do it? And I think that was in reference to the risk management.
Oh, or the
Contracts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you've already decided why is this coming to us? So again, that's something that in the future we could lay out better when we put it together, so. And this person, I don't have a discretion to not pay an increase on my property tax, so you guys have to pay your increases in whatever, so that was one of the comments in here. And we also did not give people the opportunity to make cuts anywhere. So when I said, if you scroll down to central services, when I said I kept every comment in here, I have no idea what this $200,000 is, but it was a comment.
It's just a number, not a dollar.
I don't know, 200,000, whatever. District court, that was another one that didn't have any comments, but it's reasonably well liked. Public defense, yeah.
No, stop this madness.
That was the only comment.
That was the only comment. As of Friday morning, there could be more today.
Would we have the ability in this tool to set up kind of forced choice like you can either fund more public defense or you can pay more for jail costs.
I think we could.
It's something to
It's
explore.
something that we can explore. Because there's definitely a way to show what would not happen. You can set it up so that if they do it in decreases a lot, so if I decrease the budget by 50,000, this is what we would lose. So you can do it, what we would gain. I'm sure there's a way to do a forced choice, but I'd have to see.
Cool.
And then sheriff's office corrections, the request here was the medical service costs. And law enforcement, for some reason, the law enforcement one didn't want to fund, so you can't see the full titles. But again, this was one of the areas that had more comments. And a little bit diametrically opposed comments as well. You need to fund more mental health service, we need more deputies, so.
You know, I'll comment on that. I was at the Economic Development Council retreat last week, and one of the experiments, I guess I'd call it an experiment, as to prioritizing in the community, not the county. And there must have been 30 people there. Everybody was to write down one thing and a solution to one thing. And you did that, and then you passed the card and the shuffle or group. Anyway, it got passed 4 times around, so you never knew what was gonna end up where. And I was surprised, out of that many people, one of the higher ones was crying. It was, it was kind of interesting to see that came out. I mean, homelessness, was in there, some health issues. But it was right up there on the top, which was kind of a surprise to me, because it kind of matches. I think public sentiment, people are just upset. Sure.
And then the last one was Superior Court, and this is the grant, and it's only a portion is not covered by the grant, so the comment here is like, this seems like really like,
Why not?
why wouldn't you?
Right.
So we did ask for, Commissioner Edwards, you had requested to get names from people, so we did give them the option to provide a name. Some people did, some people didn't. Some people chose, all of the demographic stuff was optional, so some people chose to fill it out, and some people didn't, and I think that would have been the case if we, some people are willing to do that.
Did you get a half, or did you get a third?
I didn't look to see what it was. I pulled it at one point, like a week in, to see what happened, and I haven't pulled that yet.
To me, it's a point of how valid is it, maybe if you're willing to stand behind it with your name, maybe that's a little more valid than anonymous, but I don't know that.
Yeah, so it was interesting, and then we'll take this back, and we talked about this, maybe we should have done it this way. We put this together pretty quickly. We wanted to see what it would do. We wanted to give people the opportunity. We wanted you to see what community was saying that you don't necessarily hear from in other venues. And again, it was more difficult than the prioritization for people to do, but we still got responses.
If you were to have one takeaway from what we have in this packet, what would it be?
Oh, Robin, don't put me on the spot like that. I think my biggest takeaway is that people are truly interested in what we're doing, and it's not always complaints.
Right.
And they do want to be involved, and they do want to provide input.
So, and it looks like most of the items that were on the table got at least some, if not the majority of people thinking they ought to be funded, so That's, it's interesting.
And I
We'll get
need to,
better at this.
I wanna play with it a little more, I wanna pull the data and see, cause we had, everyone had, people who said that we shouldn't fund any of these, so I kinda wanna go back and look at that as well. Just to see what we can glean from that, and we did not give the people the option, somebody put a comment in about reducing revenue and you guys should give us a discount on our taxes. But we didn't give anybody the option to adjust revenue themselves, so, because that's a little bit more complicated. There are more steps involved in doing that than approving spending packages.
Right, so we have more to learn about the tool, and when we do this next time, it'll be much more robust. In the meantime, it's some interesting feedback.
Could people submit budgets that were like overspent?
I don't think I set that, I think I set it up that it had to be balanced
For them to submit?
for them to submit. You can do it so that they're over or under, so that we don't spend everything and we have a reserve. But I don't think I set it up that way, I think it had to be balanced.
It probably makes better sense, because then you're forcing them to make some choices. I was just curious if you could, I was just curious how many people did that, you know?
And I didn't look at,
Submitted
I didn't look to
overspending.
see, I'll have to, again, that's more of the data that I'll have to look at to see how many people, like, if people left stuff on the table, cause I mean, some of these are hard to choose from.
Yeah. Maybe for next year, I know the story began with we have surplus. Yeah, maybe choosing a different word for next year.
Yeah, that makes it almost sound like.
Because it sounds like, you know, all of a sudden we have extra cash. So it's really, is you know, this is the, you know, additional capacity that we have. Maybe changing the wording
Yeah.
because the comment that you just stated at the end is really key on that word surplus.
And I also think it would be interesting to see what would happen if we let people adjust the budgets, the existing budgets. So we can say that we can set a bottom line, you need $500,000, obviously not real numbers. You need $500,000 for the sheriff's department to operate, we have $750,000, and they could decide to decrease it, but then we would say, if you decrease it $50,000, you lose an FTE. Not real numbers, everybody. So you can put that in there so they can say, so you can see where people think we're spending too much money. I mean, because that's the other thing that we get from people is you're spending my money and I don't like it and I don't want you to do this anymore. But I mean, that's another, I think it would be interesting to see what would happen.
All right, any other questions about the engagement tool? Then we're gonna move straight into the more interesting part of the work sessions. Oh, I need these because I can't see without. But we're gonna jump right in to decision making. And we're gonna go until 11:45 this morning, break until 1:30, and then work this afternoon until 4, and we'll get as far as we can today. All right, so we're gonna do this, the easier things in big chunks. So Nicole's gonna tell you what number of packet to open.
So it's number 6, the indirects. This is the same budget request packet that you had prior, so the last time we met. So if you have notes in your indirect packet, you can use that, it's the same exact one.
Right, nothing
Nothing has
has changed in the indirects.
Do you
And
remember, I apologize, Robin.
go ahead.
Do you remember, when we had the, just so I can go back and look at my notes if I had any, when we had that? I think I found it, never mind.
The 3rd or the 5th.
Yeah, I found it, thank you, sorry.
I'm quickly looking through the packet. These are all rates that the Board of tentatively approved. At the time, you had indirect presentations from central services, IT, HR, and financial services. There's increased revenue to the general fund in total of $756,000 and the increased expenditures of $183,000. So unless there's anything you are aware of in this packet that you'd like to discuss, I'm going to ask for a thumbs up or down on the indirect changes.
Commissioners?
What else can you do? I guess that's my question, before we move ahead. What, are you gonna turn the heat off somewhere? Or what are you gonna do? That's, what are the alternatives?
Cut,
So,
there's not a lot of
I mean, there
alternatives.
just isn't anything in there to cut
Because
back.
the cost of doing business, just maintain what we need to
Yeah.
do.
That's
Now,
right.
you know, electricity's gonna be more, fuel's gonna be more, all those kind of things, but how do you get around it?
As Romero said, this is the cost of doing business,
Okay, commissioners?
maintenance level.
Yeah, I mean, I
Do
don't know
3
what else
thumbs
to-
up.
I don't know what to do about
All right. Yep. So, 1 down. We're on a roll.
it.
The next packet, grants.
Yep, number 7.
Number 7 in your folder, for those who are following electronically. Grants, at the bottom line, in 2020, there's a $21,000 new grant. And then also a grant in public health, 1.3 million. Expenditures, in the general fund, 21,000 in 22, 273,000, almost 274 completely covered by revenue in 23. And there is really, in the other funds, there's higher expenditures mainly because the grants are already booked.
Let me ask you a question on grants.
Yes,
Grants is money coming in.
that's right.
Hard to say no, but how many of those grants require, I don't know, 50% match, 10% match, 20%?
Many of them require match, and that is already factored in to the grant request. So if they're, the vast majority say that they would use current staffing costs for match or, yep. It's already in the budget for public works, you see them using
But,
public works.
but overall, I mean, it's incoming revenue,
Yes,
mostly.
we're spending other people's money
Yeah, I mean, not,
in a way.
it's not free money, but, you know, money we sent to the feds or to the state or whatever.
That's right, and it's coming back into our county. So,
It's hard to be opposed to that.
thumbs up on grants. All right, I would say that one of the items in this packet is the foundational public health. We'll talk about the expenditures for that later, probably on Wednesday morning. We'll get to foundational public health, but the money is in the grant package. So 3 thumbs up on grants. The next item is technical and transfers.
All right.
Let me just ask a question as we move forward here, because some of these things are just gonna be, I don't wanna call them no-brainers, because some of them.
But they are, yeah.
Yeah, they're kinda that way. But when we get done, okay, like you say, these first 2 that we've done, could you tell us, well, you spent 10% of your allotment?
So we're gonna get through the easy stuff, and then for the things that have ongoing impact to the general fund, I'll be bringing up that graph, and decision by decision, you'll see the effect in real time.
And it will go line item by line.
Yep,
Yeah,
those will
at
be
that
line
point,
by
but
line.
I mean, I'm just kinda curious, when you get done flipping these over, the ones that cost of doing business, okay,
Right.
have you spent 10% already there?
That's-
I'm
yeah.
just curious, I don't know.
So far, you've had more revenue than expenditure impact on the general fund. All right, technical and transfers, packet number 8. And if you go to the bottom line, there is actually savings in general fund expenditures in 2023 of $27,000. So, yep,
Commissioners, questions or thumbs up?
or any questions, there's nothing in here this is just moving stuff to where it's supposed to be.
Do you find a number?
Yeah. And Robin,
Yes,
for simplicity for me, you know, when you go to that, could you, on page 4 or 5 is.
yep, page 4 is the bottom line.
Yeah, I know it is, but I
Yep.
mean, it just, so I don't have to look, so.
I've been.
I don't know where these guys have it on the computer, so.
Okay, thumbs up, Commissioners?
Technical and good. Look at that. We are to the operating carry forward. It's number
It's
9.
actually number 10.
Oh, number 10. 10. Skip something.
We don't
No,
count
you
good.
didn't.
Okay.
The
It's operating carry forward, and this is the package where we're taking money out that we're not gonna use out of the 2022 budget, usually for things that we didn't complete or didn't have time to spend, or for whatever reason, taking it out of 22, moving it into 23. And the big one is in the COVID fund, ARPA, Fund 1940. We booked the whole 56 million in 2023, or 2022. We're not gonna spend it, so we're taking 30,000 of that rolling.
30 million maybe?
Million, yeah, 30 million. I'm not used to having that much money to play with in one place. It's huge amounts. So the rest of these are minor amounts. One of them is non-departmental, where we're rolling forward 348,000 for items such as the climate mitigation plan, which is the bulk of it, but also 50,000 for the strategic plan, which is why I'm bringing that particular one up.
Questions?
Well, then you're doing 200,000 on lake management for treatment or whatever it's gonna be, is that's in
Right,
for?
that was not able to be spent this year, so it's rolling into next year.
Lone Lake, maybe.
Lawrence Lake.
Lake Lawrence.
6.
Oh, that's the one they couldn't do this year, they moved to next.
Wait, so the item, line 3 is climate and the strategic plan? Where's the strategic plan? I don't see that. It's under 3. Unable to complete updated strategic plan.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Have we
climate
decided that we're
mitigation
going
is,
to do it?
is,
It looks like the number is not defined there.
right, but it's
But it does-
50,000 for the strategic.
Yeah, it's not put in there explicitly. However, the third line does say complete and update the strategic plan. The amount was not put in the detail.
So that's coming out of the general fund.
So it's currently budgeted in 2022, and so we're just gonna move it forward.
Yeah, but maybe we'll need that to, you know, that'll offset almost to 1% property tax increase. You always gotta be thinking about
Cut
stuff,
some trees
you know.
down, right?
What's the mapping for the trees?
Bulk of it is the climate mitigation plan. Could you explain math on that?
Flipping to
Addie?
Addie. She's pulling it now.
Legacy forests,
No, I understand the math, I don't remember whether the board decided or not decided to move the money forward for the
strategic,
plan.
I don't recall.
That's why I have paused on this one.
I don't think we did. I
I
don't think
know
we
we had a
did.
robust discussion, I don't know where we landed.
And we had a
I
few
thought we were
jokes
gonna
on it.
have a follow-up. We were gonna have a follow-up because we asked, I believe the follow-up.
I don't have the information from Whitney yet. I
That
mean,
was-
bottom line, I'm not gonna spend it this year, so.
So that would be
if we're
an extra
going
fund
forward,
and
it'll be
hang on.
next year.
Kind of something to watch, there might be some money there to get for something else.
So we'll have a
Especially-
later point to decide that. I mean, we can carry it forward, we'll have a time where if we don't wanna do it, to say no.
Yes,
Okay, I'm fine with that.
correct.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, because you have to authorize a contract.
I mean, we're not, yeah.
Right, we would come to you with a contract. But this gives us capacity when the time comes, if the board should approve it.
Or some of these other things as well, probably.
Yes. All right, so can I get a thumbs up for the carry forward?
Yeah, as long as we can jot that down in the side column, but there's something over here we can look at later.
It's a budget, it's not approval to spend the budget necessarily. All right. The next page is revenues.
Number 11.
11. There is no reason not to say yes to this. Oh, by the way, the carry forward is zero impact on the general fund because you're reducing exactly what's carried forward. Revenue is increase, well, actually, much of it is decreases. Total decrease to the general fund for revenue adjustments, 435,000 less in 2022. Already taken into account in your forecast. 2023 revenue adjustments are less by 2.9 million, also already taken into account in this page. And if you say no to the revenue adjustments, we're still gonna get less money. So there's really no point in saying no to the
What do you mean,
revenue.
we're gonna get less money?
So you could say
Oh, I see, these are,
no
oh, okay.
to reducing the anticipated revenue in the auditor's office, but we're still not gonna get the revenue coming in the door.
And all of these are a reduction in that revenue, right?
Pretty much all of them,
One-time
it's
revenue.
going down,
I see 40,000
except
in
for
Medic one is.
Medic One and
We knew that.
veterans and public health and social services going up.
So
Did
this
we ever
is-
get an answer on public health and social services on what that general fund expenditure out of there is?
So it is, for maternal and child health in, I have it up.
Nurse Family Partnership,
And then there's a piece of it that is for,
surprised they're not spending that.
it's for, disabled recreation activities. I don't,
Oh, the,
Specialized
yeah.
recreation.
I know what it is, but how come it's not funded by something besides general fund? I guess that's my question.
Because I know that the amount of money that goes to Nurse Family Partnership is match, it's required match.
Well, that
And-
might be that.
Yep, and there was a contract signed a few years back that required a maintenance effort. So we can't reduce that, and then the DD amount is also matched to
that's the housing adjustment that we get from the general fund.
the housing adjustment
That's where,
is,
that's the operating transfer.
yeah, but that's something else.
That's where the revenue is going, so.
So we should look at that.
Yeah, you might be able
Poor
to
Robin.
save that amount of money and take it out of your home fund or something instead.
Your revenue. All right,
So on the revenue,
yes.
I don't see I had the questions about the timber, and is that not in this sheet?
We generally don't adjust the timber revenue because it is extremely volatile. We never know how much we're gonna get. So we budget we know we're gonna get X much for timber. And then the rest of it is treated as windfall, and we've been taking the timber windfall revenue to increase our rainy day fund. That's part of the rainy day fund.
But the policy issue that I raised doesn't need to be addressed here, is what I'm saying, like, we could at a separate time
To give the
discuss.
money back, right,
To the extent it could be targetedly attributed to specific cuts,
certain cuts,
that wouldn't necessarily need to be addressed in this
No,
process.
it would not.
Okay, I'm good.
right. All right, so revenue, thumbs up to the revenue. Commissioner Edwards, thank you, 3 thumbs up. The next one is capital reappropriations.
Number 12.
These items are all for projects that the board has already approved. They are currently in the budget. They are just shifting the approved amount of the project. No total increase in cost, just shifting it between years. Reappropriating the money. Taking it out of 22, putting it into 23 for the most part, or moving it to the appropriate fund, so that we can pay for the projects in the proper years. The impact, no impact on the general fund, all of this is in other funds.
Okay, on the courthouse project, for an example, it's
Yes, so which line, the
the
line
top
number
line,
one?
number one.
Yep.
500.
Yep.
And the total project cost we talked about, I guess, was 50 million, but that isn't what got bonded, was it? I thought it was less
The
than,
bond was issued, the premium brought the bond proceeds up to 50 million.
okay, so that did get 50 million.
Yes,
For some reason, I thought it was,
the face
Yeah.
value was 45.
yeah, that's,
40 over 45.
Yeah.
that's what I was wondering, where that discrepancy.
Right, but as Duncan explained, there was a premium, which made the proceeds the full 50 million. All right, and this particular line is just taking 500,000 that we know we're not gonna spend in 22 and giving us authority to spend it in 23. This really is a technical adjustment.
On line 2, all the way down to 5 in that group, you've got
Wide variety of projects that
yeah,
are
you got it
started
right.
and
One of
not
them is-
finished.
One of them is Mottman Complex Remodel, 25,617. What, so is that a piece of that 10 million that we talked about at some point, but we're not gonna do all of it? That's gonna be incrementally done? So then, what kind of a piece of that is it? I mean, is it a $100,000 piece? Is it a $1 million piece? How do we know?
The board had approved 300,000 for actually spending on the design, which we should get the 90% design report this week. But you have not approved anything more than that at this point in time. We have not paid out the design costs, it's not complete, so we need to roll a small amount of that 300,000 forward into 23.
And did we decide what we were gonna do on the countywide vehicle charging stations?
Yes, you approved going forward with that project for those charging stations that were only for county-owned vehicles at points that the public does not have access to.
How about the emergency service center roof replacement?
That is, it was funded in '22. I don't remember how much the board approved for that. But we have only just started that project because I only recently were able to fill the capital project manager positions. So again, the project's only just barely started, gonna be worked on more, and I need the money in '23. Appropriation Authority, I've got the money in the bank. And I believe that's coming out of building reserves.
Bottom line, is nothing here is a new appropriation authority.
Nothing is new.
It's just
These-
carrying forward previous appropriations that didn't get spent.
That's correct. No increase in project costs.
No new projects, free.
Nothing new here. Any questions?
Do I see?
And like on solid waste, I mean, that's, my main function as I'm watching this is for current expense budget, obviously. General fund.
Nothing in here affects the general
Nothing here
fund.
on that, I see, right?
Right, no general fund at all.
Okay.
All right, thumbs up, commissioners. Great. Next item is
It's
policy.
11:43, you have time?
Oh, no, let's, this is a great place to break. Thank you for paying attention to the time. And we will pick up at 1:30 with capital reappropriation.
Capital policy?
Capital policy, thank you, we just finished capital reappropriation.
Okay.
Capital policy next.
Okay, so we're taking a
It's
break.
hard
until-
enough to keep it straight. When I get the real term.
But it's good that you're paying attention.
I often wonder, is that how come that came out like that? I wondered if anybody's listening.
Okay, we are adjourned until 1:30, thank you.
You figured out our tricks.